Hi, everyone. My name is Christa of Practical Astros. I'm here with Elysian Astro. Hi, Elysian. Welcome. We're going to look at and talk about the Hermetic lots or the Arabic parts. I know a little bit about them, but I put this out on Bluesky, and Elysian said, I want to talk about this. So I put together some slides that will kind of walk us through. But Elysian, do you want to introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about like what your practice might look like?
Yeah, of course. So thank you, Krista, for having me on. I'm excited to be on this podcast. I think what you're doing with your approach of being practical insights to astrology and like making it more people focused is really great. So I've been practicing astrology for several years now, and I was on astrology Twitter, Astro Twitter, before it changed ownership a little bit. And so I really started to dive more into my practice these past few years, focusing on traditional astrology, so like Hellenistic, and then including like medieval Islamic as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so through Hellenistic astrology, I got introduced to the Hermetic lots, and I think they're really cool because they are kind of niche, like you kind of have to know a little bit to find them. But like once you find them, you can find really cool insights from them.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, as we were talking before, like I know like in zodiacal releasing, like um that's where a lot of people are familiar with the lots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think like especially with like the lot of fortune, like people have this misconception with the lot of fortune because the name is fortune that like that's where like luck is found.
Mm-hmm. But
And
there's
like
good luck and bad luck.
yeah, it's kind of like the wheel of fate. It's not all good luck, but it's not all good bad luck. It's kind of like the wheel of fortune in tarot.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I put this image here on the screen. This is it's referencing Plato's um Republic, the myth of Ur, and so it's about it it describes all the planets and the spindle of necessity, and I thought it was appropriate because it in that myth they talk about the casting of lots and picking up the lot that you know in some sense you choose your lot or all of your
Yeah.
lots, but then you drink from the river of forgetfulness before you're born back and get into this realm, and so you forget that you've chosen your lot. But I put that up there because there's not a lot of images associated with lots. There's a handful with fortune. And if we
Yeah.
move over to like how these lots of the seven Hermetic lots, looking at the seven visible planets, there are images for the planets. So, but I liked
Yeah.
finding that image. There's so much beauty in that myth, and I've been
Right.
revisiting that over and over. But the lot piece of that myth has really stood out. So this is a graphic that lists all of the planets and the lots that are associated with them. But do you want to go through these? Do you want to talk about them, and then we can
Yeah.
look into like how to formulate it?
Yeah, of course. So we have fortune, which is one of the ones that people are most familiar with. It's similar to the moon, so it's like good things can happen to your lot of fortune, like bad things can happen, as we talked about. It also deals with embodiment, like as the moon does. And so it's things that feel very fated in the sense that like you might not ask for them, but they like happen to you, the same way we live in a body
Mm-hmm.
and the body you're born with is the body you have, and you work with it the best way you can. And then the lot of spirit, which is the second one that a lot of people are familiar with, that deals with like your intellect, like your ideas. Um, some people think of it as like a significator for the soul, which is
Mm-hmm.
really cool. I know that Kira Ryberg, who does a lot with lots, a lot with lots, it's
I
funny.
know. I can't
Um,
stop thinking it.
Yeah, right. She says that Lot of Fortune is the card you're dealt with, and like Lot of Spirit is how you play the hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. And
Yeah.
I think it's easy to think about if you're trying to wrap your head around lots as a beginner. A lot of arrows is cool because it's associated with like Venus, so like things that you like in terms of your taste, but also like relationships
Mm-hmm.
romantic and platonic. Some people have said that like Venus will show up sometimes in like religious context or context of worship, which is really cool.
Hmm.
Because like sometimes like Venus can talk about worship, you know, in various
Yeah.
areas. Which like I didn't think about that until somebody said that.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of necessity or like Mercury's lot is interesting because it's another one like Fortune where it's like it's not all good, but it's not all bad either. It's kind of like how it's been described to me is like what you feel kind of compelled to do.
Hmm.
You know, like this sense of like you're pulled to do it. Like I have my lot of necessity in the seventh house, and when I learned that, I was like, oh, that makes sense because like
Mm-hmm.
you know, like you could look at my chart and be like, oh, you're not necessarily like relationship focused, but I think the lots add like a nice layer of being like, oh, there's emphasis here, even if it's hard to see with the naked eye.
Mm-hmm.
And then with lot of courage that shares with the nature of Mars. So this is where it's difficult to do things. You might find that like you can do things, but it requires a lot of courage, a lot of stamina from
Hmm.
you. A lot of victory. It's one of my favorites a lot because it's associated with Jupiter. Like this is probably closer to like good luck and good fortune than like the lot of fortune itself is.
Mm-hmm.
But like we can find like, you know, like places where you just get like wins and find like good community ties, like alliances, that sort of thing, which I think that's always good to know, like a good one to keep in mind if you want to start exploring before, like if you've got like a lot of fortune down and a lot of spirit and you're like, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
want to add one more. I always think it's good to like add the benefic
Yeah.
associated ones first, you know, kind of warm yourself up to the more difficult ones of fate. And then a lot of Nemesis, which is associated with Saturn. Kira Ryberg talks about this one as like a place where you can feel very lonely, having this lot in your chart, which makes sense because like Saturn is associated with loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of Nemesis and the the lot of Nemesis and the lot of Victory in addition to Jupiter and Saturn show up in like your relationship with like religion or like worldview primary like overarching. You don't have to describe subscribe to a particular religion,
Mm-hmm.
but it's another way to look. Also, I know that because a lot of Nemesis shares the nature of Saturn, sometimes you can look at a lot of Nemesis for periods where you might be imprisoned or might be like more recluse, and then I've also seen it more in like kind of chronic illness spaces where you might have hospitalization, which makes sense because like Saturn rejoices in the 12th house, which is
Mm-hmm.
associated with like hospitals and like isolation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you, but I think the lots really emphasize and really showcase like what we come to know of the seven visible planets, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that that's key also because then you can start to blend. You can find your lots, and if you have astrological software, it's easy to do this. We're going to
Yeah.
go through in a second to show kind of how to calculate it. But a free software is astro-seek.com, and Peter that runs that site, he adds more and more. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of lots that you can calculate. But these, you can go to astroseek.com, run your chart. You can click on, I think it's traditional whole sign
Yes,
house.
yes.
And then underneath
Yeah.
that, right there underneath it, it says 7 Hermetic lots. You can click it. And he puts the lots and he puts like the little Saturn glyph for Nemesis and the Jupiter glyph for victory. So it's very simple. And it's interesting. It's nice to kind of find a nuance. Like I knew where my lot of fortune and my lot of spirit and my lot of eros were, but I never, before I really got into astrology in the last like 5 years, I had zero idea where the others were. And it's been a really interesting braid of looking at my lot of victory and looking at the ruler and the decan that it's in and the 12th part that it's in. And you take all these things and you tease out this very specific, almost like a haiku of the expression of the chart because it's so sweet and so nuanced. And it will change very quickly if your birth time is off. So it's like if you're uncertain of your birth time, it's really hard to get the exact lot placements, but the lots themselves, getting a good astrologer to do chart rectification, they'll use the lots to kind of work backwards and massage, your life events towards rectifying the chart to an appropriate time. So it's like they can be useful, but they're most useful if you have a fairly close verified birth time, because they're calculations, they're not actually planetary bodies.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's a really beautiful nuance to add to your own reading. So let's move to the calculation. Do you want to talk about how you calculate these?
Yeah. So this one is really where softwares and websites like astro-seek.com are your friend, because I don't know about you, Christa, but I was never a math person. So like when I input these lots like in that program, I know for sure that it's right.
Yeah.
But if you want to, you can. I know that in the past, when astrologers didn't have access to computer software, they did a lot of this by hand. So you count from the degrees of the sun to the moon for fortune, and then you project from the ascendant. So then...
And then for the night sect, you would flip it. So it's different. So the difference between night sect and day sect. So in an astrology chart, and actually, let me just pull up. So for this location right now, the ascendant, the eastern horizon is over here at 22 degrees Leo, and the western horizon would be 22 degrees Aquarius. So the sun is below that horizon line. So it's a night sect chart. So if your sun is below the ascendant descendant line, you are of a night sect. If it's above, you're a day sect. And that really does alter the calculation. So it's usually flipped. So like for day sect, it's you start with the sun, you go all the way around to the moon in zodiacal order. And then you take all of those degrees. Like I have a balsamic moon. So you have to go all the way around the chart. It's the same moon and sun in the same sign, but my moon's at 1 degree, my sun's at 22 degrees. So you're taking a huge chunk of the chart. You're taking all those degrees, and then you start at the ascendant, and then you go that same number of degrees. So my lot of fortune is in my 12th house, because it is almost back all the way to the ascendant. But then a night sect, you're going to flip it. So if I was born at night, you would start at the moon and only go those X amount of degrees to the sun, then take that number and then start at your ascendant degree and push it forward. That's why the software is really nice, because you know that it's done correctly, like you said.
No, for real. And also, the nice thing about these is they're all projected from the ascendant, but as we talk about later, if you want to dive more into lots, and I think the AstroSeek Arabic lots calendar has like 300 or something like that. They have a bunch. Yeah. But like they don't all project from the ascendant. So, if you dive further into lots, you just want to check what the formula is. And then like, I know for AstroSeek, there's a little indication where it's like, he put a box where it's like nocturnal and it's like reverse. So like, that's another good thing for you to like keep in mind as you calculate this. Yeah. And also, one thing that I learned, and I don't know if you learned, like, a good trick, and it doesn't always work out, hence it's a trick. But if like you have a new moon, so like your sun and your moon are conjoined, you'll have the lot of fortune and the lot of spirit usually in the same house. And then if you have the full moon, one of them will be in usually the opposite. Well, both of them will be, I think, in the 7th house. So like so if you can kind of base off the moon rotation of when it was when you were born. But like, as we know, if you're not a math person like I am and you want to make sure you're correct, you can just plug it into softwares like AstroSeek, and they'll give you a good estimation, and it'll be correct in terms of calculation. So yeah.
I think it's nice even to have the calculation done for you, to then look at your chart and follow it and see like because then you can look at the houses that the places are in. So like, where's your lot of spirit? Where's Venus? Okay, well, how do they relate to each other? To get to that lot of Eros, you're pulling in the the ruler of that lot of spirit, the ruler of that Venus, and you get to kind of, it's like a choose your own adventure for the same story. You get to kind of get to where you're at through so many different avenues, and I just think that's it's interesting. So another thing to consider is then, that you can look at the dignity or the how well that the ruler of that lot or that part is able to express its significations. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, like, let's say if you have the lot of fortune in Taurus, but then you have its ruler in the 12th house. First, the ruler of the lot of fortune would be Venus, because Taurus is ruled by Venus, so you would look to be where Venus is, and that would be in Aries. So, like, the dignity of the lot's ruler is not great, so that would mean that, like, the significations of what the fortune represents, so, like, things that befall you, particularly about your, like, embodiment and how you live in the world, would be possibly more challenging. And then with that, there would be an added layer of difficulty because the lot and its ruler cannot see each other. So when the lot and its ruler see each other, there's some kind of support. So it's kind of like myself and Christa, like, we can see each other right now, and so we are able to, like, collaborate. Whereas, like, if I was in a different room, like, we would be like, oh no, what's going on? Like, we couldn't hear each other as well and communicate.
Yeah, so you can look and see, okay, well, where is, and just sticking with one or two. So a lot of fortune is one to start with. I think it's the moon's lot. So the moon is like our bestie in the star realm. And so, like, look at lot of fortune. Okay, where's lot of fortune in your chart? What sign is it in? And then look at one of the traditional domicile rulers. So, Aries is ruled by Mars, Taurus is ruled by Venus, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, etc. And so then you look at that ruler. Where is that ruler in your own chart? So, like, I have Jupiter in Virgo. And so if I was looking at Jupiter, it lives in Sagittarius and it lives in Pisces. It does not live in Virgo or Gemini. So that dignity of Jupiter is considered exiled. And so, like, my Jupiter just in my chart kind of has to be craftier because it's far away from home. And so if my lot of victory was, in Mercury's place, then I would look at, who's the ruler of Mercury. If I have a well-placed Mercury, then that's going to support Mercury as my lot of victory. So it's like you just look at what the ruler of that lot is, and how well placed it is. Also, if it's being supported by the benefics, if it's being challenged by the malefics, there's kind of a couple of thoughts, but most people don't think that being under the beams really makes a difference because it's not a visible body. So being under the beams of the sun, you're not going to see it anyway because it's a point in space. So combust or under the beams doesn't really come into play. So you're really looking at, is it being seen or witnessed by its own ruler? What's the dignity of that ruler? And then is it being assaulted by the malefics or supported by the benefics? Or if it's averse, like you were saying, if they're in adjacent houses, they can't see each other. You're kind of looking at all that to get a condition of that lot. And it doesn't mean that you're doomed. It just means if it does have a lot of challenging things, usually that means you have to work harder to see that lot come to be in a beneficial place. And a lot of times all that is just like asking for help in that area of life. Like, I can't do this on my own. I have to trust other people to be able to help me, which is in itself a difficult thing often. So it's not a matter of you either have like really bad luck or really good luck. It's like how slippery and how fluid and how fast is the movement of your good fortune, and how clunky or boundaried is your fortune, where you have to just move things out of the way to keep your fortune flowing. So, so let's talk about lot of fortune a little bit more. I made this graphic here. I put Paulus Alexandrinus quote for both fortune and spirit. And Paulus Alexandrina says fortune signifies everything that concerns the body, like the moon, because it's the moon's
Mm-hmm.
lot. And what one does through the course of life. It becomes indicative of possessions, which has kind of a lunar association, reputation, and privilege. And so I put keywords as chance, fortune, luck, body, things that we have talked about. But talk a little bit more about how a lot of victory is kind of more how we think collectively about a lot of fortune. Like a lot of fortune isn't just good things happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think a lot of us look at a lot of fortune and we're like, fortune is good, fortune is money, you know, and like in the ancient world, it was more akin to chance. Like, it's kind of like if you shower during the day and you blow dry your hair and you got to blow out and you're like, this is great, and then it rains. It doesn't mean that like you had bad luck. It just that was the conditions around you that affected you that day, and that's kind of how we think of like fortune. Like sometimes um you have a based on like outside forces and like your privilege in life, you have a chance of mitigating your fortune. So, like, if you live in a place where it's sunny all the time, you could, you wouldn't have to worry about like your blowout. Or if you have a high quality umbrella or a high quality raincoat or a car where you don't have to walk through the rain, those are some things that you could use to like mitigate your fortune if we're
Hmm.
thinking about this one small thing like hair. But we know that not everybody has that. And that doesn't mean that like because, if I have an umbrella and you don't, that doesn't mean anything about you, and it doesn't mean that you're unlucky. It just means that like there's various levels of like privilege and various levels of things that are at place in the work here in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I appreciate about astrology, is like it's it can be a very empathetic practice in terms of like, like
Mm-hmm.
they say that like, oh, we're living the same life, like we're all living the same life. But if you like look at astrology and especially like these very nitty gritty nuancy things like the lots, you're like, oh, we're not.
Mm-hmm.
Like not everybody doesn't have the same 24 hours.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas things like a lot of Jupiter, we think about Jupiter as Jupiter is the greater benefic, the life giver, the one that helps us connect to other people. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of victory is where places in where you tend to, like luck tends to shine upon you. People tend to be more generous to you. You can be more generous in those circumstances, which can create more generativity towards you. Like a good example here is like, so I have my lot of victory in the 11th house. So like
Mm-hmm.
community is very important to me. So like I invested a lot of have invested a lot of time in the astrological community. And so
Mm-hmm.
like because of your generosity of being like, hey, you're welcome to come talk to me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
here talking with you all.
Yeah.
And so that's a way of which like it's a space where you can be generous, but also you can see other people's generosity to you, and it
Mm.
can help alleviate some areas of misfortune depending on your birth chart and timing and all of that, of course.
Well, and the 11th house is the joy of Jupiter. So it's really beautiful to have the lot of Jupiter in that
Yeah,
Jupiter's joy.
yeah,
There's something else about the lot of fortune that I wanted to ask about because the moon wanes and changes
yeah.
face and moves around, and the sun does not. So there
Yes,
seems to be this consistency with a lot of spirit that we can
yes,
talk about next, but then
yeah,
kind of an inconsistency or a wavering, a phase of
yeah.
fortune. What do you think about that?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's really well said. And like I think we can even see that from like just people's lives that like may or may not know about astrology. Like there's the whole like tropes for a reason, like rags to riches, or like people
Mm-hmm.
who like their parents had money when they were born, so they were born into wealth, but then their parents might have had like bankruptcy or
Mm-hmm.
some or instances befell them, speaking of like fortune language. So, like, yeah, the good thing about, as you said, the nature of the moon and the nature of fortune is it's waxing and waning. So like nothing is the same forever, but of course, as people, we tend to like stability. So I think the waxing and waning can be like a little bit intimidating, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just, as like, having a feminine body that waxes and
Yeah.
wanes, like even some of the, the insults that are given to people, like the word, hysteria or hysterical
Yeah.
comes from, like our, you know, like our female parts, like a
Mm-hmm.
lunatic comes from that instability of the moon. It's
Yeah.
the idea that waning, or changing shape or changing face is duplicitous or
Yeah.
evil, or all these things. They have these, if there's something that is not understood, or it
Mm-hmm.
it changes it, we kind of imbue a negative,
Mm-hmm.
dark, which is a yin, feminine, lunar
Right.
thing. So it's like we kind of conflate, things that change as not being good enough because they haven't stayed. But it's that
Right.
fluctuation that gives the sun a foil, because the
Yeah.
sun is constant, spirit is constant, the daimon is constant, and so it would not be. It would not stand out as constant if you didn't have something
Mm-hmm.
else that would
Mm-hmm.
fluctuate back and forth. And that's that really beautiful, the polarity of opposites is,
Yeah.
to me, I think, why people really understand fortune and spirit. And
Mm-hmm.
fortune is the one that we want because we have this relation to, well, if it's fortune, like that's when I win the lottery. But it
Yeah.
is kind of like that. I mean, my son my son, got into kind of a competitive school because they have limited seats. So we had to put him in the
Right.
lottery, and he didn't get in initially. And
Mm-hmm.
then, a few people, their plans changed. And so he lucked out at the end, and he got in. His lot of fortune is in the ninth house, and it's like about
Oh,
this higher education, so it really it turned out later to be like this blessing. But it's like winning the lottery for a
no, for
school
real.
or winning a lottery for financial. We kind of look at that, but not everybody
Yeah.
wins. So like if
No,
you
for
don't
real.
win, that's just part of the wheel. That's part of
No,
the
for
story of
real.
fortune. Yeah. Let's talk a bit about spirit. I love spirit. I love I love my lot of spirit, and I,
Yeah.
working with, the decans.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time with the idea of the daimon, and
Mm-hmm.
so I have really grown to love the lot of spirit and connect with it more so than my lot of fortune. Not that I have preference. I've just, in this phase of my astrological
Mm-hmm.
career,
Yeah.
I absolutely love my lot of spirit. So, um, what what can you tell us about,
Yeah.
how would
Yeah.
you look at this, like in a natal reading?
Yeah. So like I think like as you said, the lot of spirit is associated with the sun. So there's a sense that like the lot is enduring, like an enduring quality to this lot. With the sun you get a sense of authority. So a lot of times with a lot of spirit you'll see something where like the circumstances that befall you, the fortune is changing, but the lot of spirit is enduring. So like you'll see people who like have always wanted to be um like a teacher, and they might have the lot of spirit in the ninth or the third. Um like the lot of spirit is in a sense a kind of calling that you are always kind of like pulled towards. Um and so like you can see a lot of times when people will have their first sense of like calling or being like a sense of like, oh, fated, like I was meant to do this, a certain kind of nudge in terms of like zodiac releasing with the lot of spirit. And also like a lot of times when people have big periods of a lot of spirit, like you'll see their big ideas or like publishing something. Have you seen like the lot of spirit like with your life with zodiacal releasing? Like did you track them?
Um, yes, but I don't feel qualified to even speak on it. I love looking at the zodiacal releasing.
Yeah.
I've spent more time with a lot of fortune zodiacal releasing to kind of understand past events of
Yes.
things that have happened to me, which is
Yeah.
kind of a lot of fortune
Right.
adjacent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't spent as much time with a lot of spirit,
Yeah.
in ZR like I have fortune.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you describe a lot of spirit? Like, do you find it similar to you, or?
Yeah, I have a lot of spirit in Sagittarius, early degree Sagittarius.
Neat.
And
Oh, really?
and when I first learned
Yeah.
astrology when I was like 15, and I had a ephemeris to like
Uh-huh.
figure out what my ascendant would be.
Uh-huh.
It I had miscalculated it to say I was a Sagittarius rising, and I was like, yeah, like I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I did it correctly like a year later, and I was Scorpio rising, and I was like, I don't want to be a Scorpio rising. I don't like, I love being a Sagittarius
No, for
rising,
real.
but it was because it was that spirit, that daimon and Sag.
Yeah.
It was like this it came out first. It like kind of jumped the shark, so to speak, and was
That's
like,
funny.
I'm the one.
That's funny.
And even though I am a Scorpio rising, like there's no way around it. I look at spirit as being like almost like the holy guardian angel that is around me at all times, and it's there
Yeah.
to kind of inform my intuition
Yeah.
to and my drive. And I've had so many really close calls that I was protected from based on my response to my intuition. And I am a bit reckless, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
adventurous, and I love seeking and traveling, and I've
Yeah.
always had this, it just feels like this kind of like really bold,
Yeah.
adventurous spirit. And I'm a Taurus sun. I have 4 planets in Taurus. Like, I quote, shouldn't be as
Yeah.
like risk taking
Yeah.
as I am. And it's because like it's just my heart is like, I just gotta open
Yeah.
that door. And I have
Yeah.
gotten myself into all sorts of crazy situations because I just walked in to the door.
Yeah.
I was bold, and I feel like that's my spirit. It's the only fire placement I
Yeah.
have in my, I have Neptune and Sag, and I have a lot of spirit in Sag, and I feel like it's just been this really,
Yeah.
there's that uh, Howl's Moving Castle, that
Yeah.
anime film, and there's that little fire spirit that moves the
Uh,
house, and to me that is a lot of the daimon is that spirit. You
yeah.
just got to keep it. You got to feed
No, for
it. You
real.
can't smother it. You have to encourage it, but it controls the whole movement of the soul. That's how I view it.
Yeah.
And
No, for real.
the words that I put up here are soul, intelligence, temper, and power. And Paula says the lot of the daimon or lot of spirit is the ruler of the mind and the disposition and intelligence and all power. Sometimes too, it has to do with the matter of action. Um, I couldn't find as many quotes on spirit as I could fortune. It's almost like we take spirit for granted, and we spend a lot of time
Yeah.
tending to
No, for
fortune.
real.
Um, so with those two, we if you're into Hellenistic astrology, you're probably familiar with zodiacal releasing, and those are the
Mm-hmm.
two that you will kind of cast from. So casting from the lot of spirit, wherever, regardless of what your ascendant is,
Mm-hmm.
where your lot of spirit, where your lot of fortune is, that kind of starts your zodiacal releasing. So I have a lot of spirit in Libra. So like my zodiacal releasing when I was born began in Libra, not Scorpio, even though I'm a Scorpio rising. And so it's from there, and there's different zodiacal releasing as a whole. I mean, there's Kira Ryberg has a really wonderful
Mm-hmm.
lecture on it. Astrology podcast probably did like a 50-hour video on it. There's so much meat into that. It's worth to look
Yes.
into just for these two. And even if you don't know anything about it, to go and look at your zodiacal releasing and just look at the dates that come up. Even if you don't
Yes.
understand it, if there's some dates that really pop out and be like, oh my goodness, like that seemed like what's an LB, what's a loosening of the bond, like that date was very important to me. It's even
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know anything about it, looking at it, it will help kind of teach you kind
Mm-hmm.
of backwards, like the themes
Yeah.
that you were dealing with show up in the ways that the lots, both spirit and spirit and fortune especially, um, kind of come into play just within your own narrative. Do you use zodiacal releasing just in your own practice? I know that you have different types of readings that you
Yeah.
offer, but like, how do
Yeah.
you approach ZR?
So that's a good question. So I like to look at like Lot of Fortune to be like, okay, let me see what is kind of coming down like um the pike in terms of like things that are gonna happen to me. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, like as I'm sure you know, like there's been times where I like was reading too much into the astrology and I was like, I was like, you're like I told myself I'm like, you're fine. Like there was this loosing of the bond from like Lot of Fortune like a year or two ago, and I was like
Mm-hmm.
convinced that I was going to like something was gonna happen to me like on a plane because like I was starting like my trip like, across the seas, and
Mm-hmm.
like it was fine, but like I like read too much into it, so like
Yeah.
that's a caution. But like I like to see like I like to use zodiacal relation because like I like to like make meaning. So like I'm very big into like what you said, like going back and being like, oh, this is an important time for me
Mm-hmm.
when I didn't know astrology, and like this is what cool thing happened, and then it's helpful to like learn the astrology afterwards. Um, but then I also like the astrology of like the lot of piety, which I'll talk about later, because it's like I've come to know it of multiple things, but like as a friendship lot, and like without
Mm-hmm.
fail, like when I have a lot of piety activation, like one of my friends, 98% of the time will like text me or
Mm-hmm.
like um do something with that. And as I said, like I have a lot of Jupiter, the lot of yeah, the lot of victory, the lot of Jupiter in the 11th house. So like I'm a big friend person. So
Mm-hmm.
like I always like to look at when the astrology is gonna like line up with things that like I look forward to, you know?
That's another thing I wanted to ask about. So, when the ruler of that lot, um, have you had experiences like when Jupiter has come and been at that point and kind of when Jupiter is on its own lot within your natal chart, is that what you're talking about? Is like when something is activated when you have the ruler of that lot on that placement? Like, have you had an experience?
Yeah. So like a big one. So I'm actually a Taurus rising. So we're a
Mm-hmm.
sister sign, ascendants. But so like when my lot of victory and my in the Jupiter, so like that would be Pisces,
Mm-hmm.
conjoined, I got a scholarship, like a full ride scholarship, to go like to do further studies.
Mm-hmm.
So like the eighth house role in the 11th, so that makes sense as a scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a huge like Jupiter moment for me because I was like this would not have been possible without like the eight of Jupiter, and that was like around that time. So it was like
Mm-hmm.
really cool to see, and of course it was because Jupiter takes a while to like go around the zodiac. You
Yeah.
know, it's not gonna be like as
Another 12
quick.
years.
Yeah, yeah, no, for real. Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
be waiting another time, but it was still very cool to like mark time in that way, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned a lot of piety, and
Yeah.
let me see if I can get this up here. So this is your Kofi, and so you have it's Kofi ko-fi.com/Elysian. It's Elysian Astro, Elysian Astro. Um, and then so this lot of piety reading. Can you?
Yeah.
I don't know the lot of piety, so
Yeah.
can you talk about it?
Yeah. So the lot of piety is actually one of my favorite lots. The formula is moon. I'm pretty sure it's moon to Mercury from the ascendant. It's from medieval Islamic astrology, and so the lot of piety has to do with like religiosity in the sense of like one's inclination to like religion, but also meaning making more further. So like I've seen a lot of people who have like a lot of piety in like the 10th house, which is associated with like praxis, career,
Mm-hmm.
be like a minister of faith in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also seen a lot of people have like cool friendship synastry. So like I have my lot of piety in the early degrees of Taurus, and so a lot of my like people that at some point I'm like, you and I are like really close friends, or there's something that I really admire about you. Like we have really cool like their one of their planets is touching my lot of piety, or like vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to look at the lot of piety as like really a way to be like friendship friendship and like really meaning making, like what gets you out of bed in the morning kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, you know?
Yeah.
And like if you are spiritually inclined or like religious in some way, like a lot of piety can also be useful in terms of like what kind of practices that you might like or what kind of people that you might like based on like the synastry of the lots. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a really cool lot that I'd love to hear more people talk about and explore for themselves. They don't necessarily have to be religious because it's really about like what gives you meaning, kind of similar to the lot of spirit in the way that like it sticks with you, but obviously different formula.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, because of the calculation of moon and Mercury as part of the formula, it's something that's like really close and like personal to
Mm-hmm.
you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I mean, there's so many studies on just happiness. Like what is a quality of happiness? And it's mostly boils down to your relationships, your
Yeah,
social circle, like how you
yeah,
connect to other people. And if we think of
yeah,
that in a religious or a spiritual context, what religion and spirituality is you is recognizing your desire to want to connect to something beyond yourself. You want to think of things and the mind is seen in Mercury and the moon especially. And so
yeah, yes,
it is like this, how am I able to connect? Because the moon wants
right,
to translate, Mercury wants to connect. They are very
right,
personal.
yeah,
Mercury is going to be fairly close to your sun because
yes,
it can only go so far, but it could be
right,
all the way around from your moon. But it's like the ways that I like the, finding meaning making. So, like, say if somebody was really trying to search and they were having a maybe they broke away from their church that
yeah,
they were raised in or their
yeah,
faith that they were raised in, but they still have this desire to seek
yeah,
something beyond themselves.
yeah,
Coming to you for a lot of piety
yeah,
reading, maybe they could find
yeah,
like, well, if I looked at this part of my life, maybe I could find meaning in
yeah,
my animals in the sixth house,
right,
or my career or my
yeah,
neighborhood or my sisterhood,
right,
or foreign travel. I mean,
oh, yeah.
I have no idea where my lot of piety is. So when we're finished with this, I'm going to look it up and see. But
Yeah, you should let me know.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I love that. I love that offering because one, I've never heard of somebody doing that reading before. And it just shows that there's so much in astrology. You can start with the basics. And if you get hooked, you're going to just be down all sorts of
No,
different
for
rabbit
real.
holes.
Yeah.
um, awesome. Well, we have just this one, lots more lots there. Like you said, there's like 300 or so.
Yeah.
And there's another picture that I found from the Myth of Ur. But thank you so much, Elysian, for being here and sharing your love and your expertise on the lots. Do you have anything else you want to share? How people can find you, or if you want them to find you?
So I'm on Bluesky and on Instagram with at Elysian Astro. So you can find me there. Obviously you can find me on Kofi. Um, and I also have a Substack, which should be some variation of that.
Okay,
I don't think it's the exact same thing, but
I can put it
there's
all in the show
places to
notes
find.
too.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'll get the details so that'll be nice and easy to click on it.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining in. You can comment where your favorite lot is in your own chart. If you have an Astro humble brag that you have a lot, conjoin something pretty awesome, just put it in the comments. But thanks so much for doing this, and we'll catch you next time.